All right, hello everyone. So last short video in our whistle stop tour of the openings, and so far we've done all of the sort of traditional, if you like, openings, and they're traditional for a reason. It's because they're the ones that generally offer both sides the best chances, but there are some unusual ones that get played from time to time as well, and not all of them are awful. To give us a bit of a guide, there's nearly 3 million games in the chess.com database. And from this position, the start position, white, according to the computer, is about a third of a pawn better, give or take, just because of the advantage of the move. And so white, out of every 10 games, wins 4, 3 draws, 3 wins for black, give or take. I know it's not quite right, but basically 4-3-3. So that'll give us an idea of how good or bad, based on results, some of these openings are. So what ones can you play? So one that gets seen occasionally is the birds opening. Is not completely awful. 32% you can see. So white only wins 3 out of 10 rather than 4. It's black that gets the 4 out of 10 with the bird. So no good reason really for white to play it, but it's not awful, and you might occasionally catch an opponent out with it. The most common moves for black would be things like d5, knight f6, just develop sensibly and normally, and you're going to be pretty much fine against the birds. Some interesting things that you can play if you feel very much more risky with black. You can try the from gambit, and that puts white back up to 40%, but black's also at 40, and it's quite exciting. You'll get possibly here. So black tries to get the pawn back that way, or possibly more likely and much more common, in fact, as it turns out, is just to fully gambit the pawn, takes, and black is a pawn down, but has some compensation. The bishops have got nice open lines. He's going to castle. The queen can get into the attack. So he's sacrificed a pawn for an advantage in development. There is quite some compensation here. White, according to the computer, is only a quarter of a pawn up. So even though white's got a whole extra pawn physically on the board, the computer thinks black has quite a lot of compensation. So that's okay. So that's the bird opening. The other thing that could come from it, if black's just playing sensible, normal developing moves, you might get something like this. Again, just normal, typical moves. You might get this sort of thing. With the stone wall, which we've seen, bishop to one of those squares, put it there. We've seen that black can play the stone wall, setting up, it would be, good arrow, setting up pawns here, here, and here. There's nothing stopping white doing the same thing in reverse, and it has the same drawbacks. So same basic plan. Let's just do a move. So you're going to do, white's going to put the knight here at some point, probably castle at some point, and you've got an attack based on this, based on the knight going here. If black trades, you open this way and the rook comes up. It's quite a comfortable plan for white, but it's not absolutely winning or anything. I mean, you know, it just isn't. The problem is you just can't easily get this bishop out, so you might want to try and play this move first to release the bishop. So yeah, the stone wall in many ways is almost a better bet than the bird opening itself. So that's one possibility. As I say, it's not completely awful for white, the bird opening. What you have to be doing is be very, very careful of nasty checks appearing here. So don't do this. Absolutely don't do that and get checkmated. Okay, so yeah, so there's the bird opening. That's one possibility. Another one that is perfectly okay from the starting position, that was unexpected. Let's just put analysis board back. Don't quite know why I did that. Another possibility from the start position is the move b3, the Larsen opening. That's calling it Nimzovich Larsen. This is okay. Similar, it's not a million miles off the 40-30-30, is it? It's a little bit better for black. But again, there's no issue here. If black just plays sensible, normal developing moves, bring the knight out so you're defending the pawn from the bishop. Okay. Sensible developing moves will be absolutely fine. You'll probably find white plays e3 and ends up perhaps putting the bishop here. at some point, maybe trade off the knight. That's possible. It's okay for white. You say you'll do something with the bishop. The knight might go there, or it might come here if the bishop has gone a bit further. For there's just, you know, there's things to do. The two pawns can come out. It's not bad. This one, not bad at all. It's pretty solid. What's black's most common move in this position? Knight there. I'm guessing it's bishop b5. Yeah, I'm just using the database to help. The idea that you play bishop d6 here is weird. I don't know why that's the most common. It's just an odd move, and yet it seems to do all right. But yeah, it's okay. This one, as I say, is okay. If Magnus Carlsen, who's world champion, as I recall, and has been for about 10 years, if he's happy to play it, it's okay. So yeah, that's one possibility. Another one that we can go for is a bit of a setup opening, actually, known as the Veresov. Knight c3 is okay. Again, it's not a million miles off the 40-30-30, not a million miles off. And the idea with this one is that black's going to bring, white's going to bring the bishop out, put the queen probably here, maybe here, and castle queenside, and just go for a quick attack. So let's just play some typical moves. Knight f6, bishop g5, maybe knight bd7. The queen is probably going to go, there's of course f3. I'd forgotten that. I haven't played this in so long. Knight f3 is common enough. It's playable. F3 with the idea of going here is quite exciting. The line that say that on the odd occasions I've played it is to put the queen out and immediately try to get castled. So maybe e6, and there it is down at the bottom. It's only 2 games in the database of master games, so it's better than that set of results. You can castle, or you could just play e4, which is pretty obvious. Takes. You can't play knight takes because of the bishop taking the queen. So yeah, so this one is okay. Its reputation, knight c3, because you're not supposed to put the knight in front of the c pawn and a queen's pawn opening. But this isn't awful, not awful at all. If you're going to play an unusual opening. So again, your third move is there, and it's okay. It's not the greatest. Look, as I say, black's results are a bit better than in the traditional openings, but this one's okay. So I think that's probably the 3 that spring to mind as being all right. Some others that probably aren't, but this one occasionally gets played. It says it's called the Polish opening. Some people call it the orangutan for reasons I just don't know. And Magnus Carlsen, again, if he can play it, then it can't be awful, can it? The most common move for black is e5. It's pretty natural, it's just hitting that. And what white will tend to do is gambit the pawn, is just let it go. So black will take. Why? Well, because you've then got this one. So that's okay. Yeah, it's playable. There's no, again, it's okay this for white. It's just a bit weird. And, you know, why would you play something apart from just for a bit of fun if it just seems to be better for black than it is for white? But it's okay. Yeah, if you want to play something a little unusual, nothing wrong with that one. Similar comments to these 2 moves. H3, similar look, it just switches it to black's favour, so it's black that's sort of getting the 4-3-3 advantage. But A3 is playable, the Anderson, because it's just quite a useful move in some openings, so you can play it straight away. Similar for H3, it's probably got the same sort of results. Yeah, sure enough, but this one's, again, slightly better for black. Okay, fine. What else have we got? You can play moves like that, are absolutely safe. They're okay, but I'm just saying each time look at the percentages. D3 is okay. The Mises opening, but again, why play it if the other moves are better? E3 is okay, but same response. One that seems to do, knight H3 is just, yeah, it does better than it ought to. It's dreadful, don't play it. It's just a horrible place to put your knight. It just, yeah. So we don't do that one. One that is probably better than it looks is the sodium attack. And don't be fooled by that, because it's only been played 14 times, and it tends to get played by like Hikaru Nakamura. He plays like speed runs, a really weird opening. So most of that is probably the second best player in the world, just getting wins by mucking about with nonsense. But it's the sodium attack, because of course the chemical symbol for sodium is Na. But it's not the absolute worst. bizarrely. It really isn't. Maybe the knight will come there and a bishop will come here and you'll aim at this square, maybe. Possible. The pawn might go to c4 and then the knight can drop back and support the center, maybe. It's not completely hideous, but again, I'm not convinced that the computer will think much of it. And sure enough, the computer says knight a3, we've gone from white being half a pawn up to black being half a pawn up, because it's just not where knight should be. So that's the sodium attack. What else have we got? We've said b4. Other ones that you shouldn't play. The grob is just horrible. There's some tricks. If black doesn't really know what they're doing, there are some tricks, and players who play the grob know them. But I think it's safe to say if you just go for sensible development, you're not going to go too far wrong in the grob. Maybe there just to blunt the bishop. Look at the percentages here for black. It's fantastic. So that's pretty awful. And I think that's probably covered near enough all of it. One that I dread to put it up because it's got a silly name, that again Nakamura plays occasionally for giggles, and we don't play this because it's not just because it's got the silly name, the Bong Cloud. Yeah, okay, wonderful. I guess because whoever invented this thought you'd have to be taking something you shouldn't be to play it. It's awful, obviously. Look, your king is immediately blocked, the queen has immediately blocked the bishop, but is in the way of the knight and can't castle anymore. So it's awful. But Nakamura occasionally plays it for giggles. And of course, he is so good that he managed to take a chess.com account to a 3000 grade, just playing variations of putting the king on e2. But yeah, we don't want to be playing that as juniors. Another one, the Barnes opening, occasionally gets played. Curiously, white does all right with it. Black does even better. It's just horrible, though. You know, you're weakening your king straight away on this nasty diagonal. I would suggest don't do it. But yeah, okay, well, fine. Nakamura again does it occasionally and puts the king there and calls it, I think it's called the Fred. I think he calls it the Fred, so something like that. Still saying Barnes on here, but I think Nakamura calls it the Fred opening. Goodness knows why. Anyway, so yeah, we don't want to be playing the silly ones, at least not until we're fantastic players. So yeah, I think that's probably about it. You can't really play too many silly openings with black because white is already half a pawn ahead just for having the value of the extra move. So you can't really do too many silly things as black, I'm afraid. You'll probably get stomped if you do. Did we look at knight c3, the Van Geet opening? That again, it's doable, but it tends to change into other things. Like if you get here, you're likely to see e4 next, and suddenly you've got the Vienna game, which is normal traditional chess. What else could you play? Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that for black. Yeah, knight f3 you can play. That's actually not too bad. Seems to do all right, although it's a pretty small survey, only 100 odd games, but that doesn't seem to be too awful. And that reminds me of one you can play as black if you really feel the need, the two knights tango. I'm just trying to think which order the moves go. Is it here? Mikenas, I'm just trying to think where they go. Ah, dear. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. Is it there, 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 there? Is that the one? No, I can't remember. There is one you can play as black, which is completely silly, where you bring the two knights out before anything else, and white pawns just head up the middle of the board and chase your knights around it. It's called the tango because the knights dance a tango around the board. Brilliant. Yeah, so I think that's probably about it. Yeah, the Nimzovich is okay if you're going to play weird ones as black. There's nothing wrong with that, as you can see. So that one's okay. What else have we got? Chigorin defense. It's a bit odd because you put a knight in front of your c-pawn, but again, you can see the results aren't completely hideous for black. It's not great though. And I think that is probably about it. I think that covers the really silly ones and some of the less silly ones. So yeah, that's all of the whistle stop tour of some of the openings done. Hopefully it's given some of our new players, junior players and beginners a bit of an idea of the openings. And then once you found one you like, just say get online and you're going to find grandmasters and other proper experienced chess coaches that go into a bit more detail on them. All right, see you all next time for some more games. Thanks.